Sorry, but I watched the entire Jubilee video. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. Ah, it's okay. It's entertaining. I mean, I'm sort of categorically opposed to the form of entertainment, but if you're gonna watch, if you're gonna see anything like that, you're going to want it to be from, you're gonna want it to be from Mehdi Hasan, right? Like, that's pretty much the best possible form of the medium that you're gonna get. You're gonna watch the clips or not. Why are you, don't be annoying. I watched the clips yesterday. No, I did think a little bit more about the Mehdi Hasan Jubilee debate. And I thought a little bit more about the way people were reacting to it. And I think maybe I was a little bit too oppositional because, so I want to be clear. I was, at no point was I oppositional to Mehdi Hasan, okay? I have not spoken an ill word of him. I may never. I really like Mehdi Hasan. Big respect for that guy. In a world where I'm constantly disappointed by people who are supposed to be on my team, he's the GOAT. Not an issue with him. That being said, in terms of how people are reacting to it, and yeah, there are some far-right people who are saying, oh, Mehdi Hasan got BTFO'd here, etc., etc. You know, okay, sure, right. You're always, they're going to say that no matter what. For the most part, though, what's happening is that people are looking at clips from the debate, and they're saying TOS unfriendly stuff about the participants in the debate. Like, that's 90% of the engagement, 99.9%. And maybe I was a little bit myopic at first. Maybe there's some value. Okay, I think this only works with Mehdi Hasan, by the way, okay? I don't think this works with most people. The unique thing about Mehdi Hasan is that he has the, not just the debate skill, right? But he has the credibility and the presence and the maturity for it to feel like a mismatch when he talks with these degenerate Nazi trolls, right? So if somebody, it does work with Sam Seder as well. If it was somebody like myself or Destiny or Hassan Piker or anybody else who's thought of more as like a loud internet commentator, anyone in that ballpark, you know, I think it falls flat. Because then, to a lot of people, it just looks like mutual shit flinging. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you go on there and it's like, oh, here's 20 Nazis. Let's go. F you, piece of shit. You're ugly. You're the white, supreme white race. You're fat. You know? Like, it just turns into a slugfest. It's not even about debate skill. The skill demonstrated is irrelevant, basically. It's more about, like, the respectability. You know? And I think that, like, for the most part, the way people are reacting to this is like, I cannot believe that the esteemed, respectable Mehdi Hasan had to suffer being in the same room as these loser degenerates. You know, video unrelated. I'll just play that without audio, right? Like, I can't believe he was subjected to this. And as a consequence of the imbalance between his respectability and the complete lack thereof of the other guys, I think that it, for the most part, it makes people just want to say stuff like quote tweet a clip and say we can't coexist with these animals. You've seen the people on Twitter. You've seen the way they've been talking, right? It kind of shines a light on them, but not in a, oh, their debate points got owned. He epically owned them with debate, because that's not the point, right? But more in a, like, wow, these people are deplorable monsters. You get what I'm talking about, right? I've been saying an insane amount of liberals saying TOS stuff about the other people in the debate. Yeah, me too. Not just like lefties either, but a lot of people are saying like, wow, these people aren't adhering to the social contract. That's crazy. They can't do this, you know? And which is pretty much the only like takeaway you can get from Nazis, I think, right? Like, no one, World War II was not won by debating Goring and beating him at the, you know, in the free marketplace of ideas. It's pretty funny. Oh, hello, Ruben. I do think that this only works because Mehdi Hasan was lied to about the nature of the debate. I don't think it would have worked if Mehdi Hasan had gone in and promoted the whole thing beforehand as, yep, it's me versus 20 Nazis, because then it would be like a, you know, opens up bag labeled dead bird inside. I don't know what I expected. The fact that Jubilee lied preserves his, I guess, his like cleanliness relative to the issue, you know? He did even say in the debate he doesn't debate he doesn't debate fascists. You know, he's here to debate right-wing Republicans, which tomato, but that's a distinction he holds. You get me, right? Did Jubilee do good? No, I'm saying the opposite of that. I'm saying the opposite. They lied to him? Yeah, they told him he was debating far-right Republicans. In reality, he was debating a pre-selected cabal of grifty, fame-hungry Nazi degenerates with like Twitter accounts and YouTube accounts, all looking to take a little jump on the algorithm. You know, there is a difference, dude. If it, like, for me personally, just speaking as somebody who's, you know, pretty familiar with debate and what debates are like, there is a massive difference between debating like I don't know, an Oklahoman Republican who thinks that Doge is doing good work in the government, sincerely, and like an internet Nazi who went on 4chan every day of his life starting at 10 and will say or do anything so he doesn't have to work a 9 to 5. If he could just get enough YouTube money to not have to work for what he thinks for the Jews, you know, that would be all he needs. That, like, there is a massive difference between these two groups of people. Jubilee blurred the line and lied about it because it's Jubilee. It's honestly pretty impressive for Mehdi Hasan. He was able to keep his composure despite being basically ambushed by 20 Nazis. Yeah, he is the GOAT. Anyway, this doesn't really change any of the broader shit that I said about Jubilee or like the fact that nobody should go on there. But I wanted to say, like, in the context of this specific, because this is a hat trick. You can't do this 20 times. You can't do this like perfect, pristine individual such as Mehdi Hasan, you know, gets tricked by Jubilee into debating a bunch of grift-hungry internet fascists. Like, you can't do that 20 times, right? Like, that's just a one and done. He's not going back on there. At least I hope not. Jubilee will probably pull back from the... No, Jubilee's shameless. They're not going to pull back from anything. They're going to keep trying to do this, just finding people who will go on. Of course, absolutely. You know, it reminds me a little bit of Slavoj Žižek versus Jordan Peterson. Because Jordan Peterson is a lunatic and stupid, and Slavoj Žižek, for all his faults, is very smart. And in their debate, they were woefully mismatched. And in a way, the debate was kind of sad because Žižek should not denigrate himself by having to take seriously the opinions of somebody like Peterson, who was so ill-prepared for the debate, he did nothing but read the Communist Manifesto beforehand. But it was still kind of fun to, like, see the contrast between the two. Now imagine if they debated 20 more times. Do you think at the, you know, the 21st debate between the two of them, you would have still gone, wow, Slavoj Žižek really, you know, brought some light to the massive intellectual gulf between these two? No, not so much. Past a point, it just becomes theater. I think that, you know, you have to respect that line. You can't just treat it as entertainment. This was a wonderful little expose on what these people are like. I'm glad that a lot of people on Twitter are reveling in their disdain for these men and women, and Mehdi Hasan's the GOAT. I don't know. That's just, I just think it's important to engage with the nuance of the optics of somebody like Mehdi Hasan getting tricked into, you know, doing this bullshit. Maybe a little bit of elitism is good. Oh, I love elitism. The problem is that it has only one definition now. Elitism now exclusively refers to economic elitism. It refers to class distinctions. What happened to cultural elitism? I love we're so desperate to bring everyone down to the intellectual standard of the common man. We no longer have an understanding of what it means to be like a cultured person. We don't have educated elite, you know? We don't have culture elites. We don't have people who are respectable or looked up to, right? You know? The closest thing that I can think of, and I'm being serious about this, is like Gordon Ramsay. We still respect elitism when it comes to food. There are a few fields where we do this, but for the most part, we don't. Maybe it's because everyone's tasted the difference between a good and a bad meal, you know? I don't know why exactly, like everyone has at some point in their life tried to cook, so everyone's engaged with it. But when it comes to basically everything, from vaccines to painting to like in every element of our culture now, it's considered distasteful to suggest that some people might be of better taste, you know? Some people might just have a better taste, more knowledge. I don't know. Like, is there anything wrong with a society having an intelligentsia? You think everybody's going to read like 200 books a year? No. Why is that wrong? Wouldn't any society have that? Isn't that good? Isn't it good for a society to have a guy that you point to and you're like, oh no, that guy's like really learned, you know? And then you try to aspire to be like that guy. Like there's a bit of a, you know, like a sort of like a leadership role inherent to that. Nowadays, nobody respects this. Everyone wants everybody to be, we see this in the behavior of our elites, by the way, right? Our economic elites. you know, because the wealthiest people in the world now act and dress like us. They wear shit clothes like us. They listen to shit podcasts like us. They go to UFC fights. Can you imagine? UFC is the most like lowbrow, low IQ form of public entertainment imaginable. And for some reason now it's fashionable for the economic elite. People who 100 years ago would have been going to Carnegie Hall, who would have been building libraries in their name. Yeah, bread and circus was supposed to be for the proletariat, but instead now the wealthy people are LARPing as us going to them. It's crazy. And they're not actually going there to watch the fight. They're going there to schmooze. They're going there to network. They're going there to be seen as one of the common men, you know? It's so important to them to be seen as the same as us. But they're not like us. They're not even remotely like us. The elimination of cultural elitism has done nothing but make everyone stupider and made invisible the cultural barriers between the common men and the economic elite. These cultural markers used to distinguish people in a way that at the very least reified these class differences. The wealthy wore tuxedos and go to the opera. The poor, you know, they dress in, I don't know, work clothes and they go see like underground boxing shows or whatever. But nowadays, the underground boxing shows are the cool places for the wealthy to show up, and no one goes to the opera. Except for, I don't know, schnozzy New Yorker reading upper middle class yuppie types in an effort to emulate the auspices of wealth from a century ago. Lol, that's not really true. You don't think so with like Hamilton? You don't think that's like an upper middle class yuppie thing? It's true, the poor used to go to plays. I think lots of people still visit the opera. It's not really culturally relevant anymore. Not the way that it used to be. I'm not saying nobody goes to the opera, but like there's a reason why the wealthy are showing up at you know, the UFC fights, right? Nobody's going over to see Hamilton to be seen. It's not the thing. Doesn't Vosh hate linguistic prescriptivism, though? It's literally cultural elitism. Linguistics prescriptivism isn't cultural elitism, it's just racism. Linguistic prescriptivism, like trying to freeze the meaning of words, that's not how culture works. It's just like a conservative reaction to changes due to other cultures and slang, the adoption of other words. You know, it has nothing really to do with like creating a linguistic elite, which, oh, by the way, linguistic elite, good luck with that, buddy. Okay. Who the is reading that shit anymore? Nowadays, when people read, like the only, really, I don't know, gripping, I would guess, I don't know, like a high IQ linguistic elite. Yeah. Like writers. Like nowadays, okay, so you can read Dostoevsky or whatever, but like in terms of today, what are some living authors that you can think of who are putting out masterpieces like that, who are talked about like reverently? That's the difference. There are writers right now who are putting out stuff of comparable quality and, you know, highbrow, like you have to be very learned to get it, as Dostoevsky, whatever, War and Peace, whatever you prefer, right? They exist more so than ever before. There are more people are more learned, more people are literate, but are they talked about with reverence? That's the point. We don't have icons in these fields anymore. We don't have people we look up to. We don't have like these aspirational figures. And oftentimes these people were that in the past, right? It was like that with Dickens, wasn't it? It was like that with Mark Twain, even though they weren't super highbrow. But like, I guess I just miss, I like the idea of a society where exceptional behavior is valued rather than everyone LARPing towards the median, you know? Yes, Twain is still light years beyond the average American today. Bosch is kind of going on a Brian Griffin rant. Just call me pretentious. You realize making a Family Guy reference in a denunciation of my mourning the loss of intelligentsia makes you look bad, right? You're making my point. Guy who's only experienced pretension through Family Guy episodes. Getting a lot of Brian Griffin vibes from this live streamer. Come on. Jesus. Don't tee me up that well. Calling you Brian Griffin's funnier, though? That's fair, you know? And that was a good counter-argument. I respect that. Nobody gets Calvin and Hobbes jokes anymore because they're unironically too intellectually highbrow. It's been a while since I've read Calvin and Hobbes, but I did get the feeling the last time that I read it that it seems like I feel like a lot of people legitimately would not understand a lot of what's being said, which is a little sad. Not like most people, but probably more people than when it was originally written. We are experiencing a illiteracy crisis right now, you know? Now we're too busy watching the CEO at the Coldplay concert. People have always been entertained by cheap spectacle. I guess the issue is that people used to engage with cheap spectacle, and then they would turn off the TV and go, but isn't that author smart? That's my problem. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be, you know, Ernest Hemingway 24/7. I'm saying that people used to be normal, but then they would look up and go, damn, but Ernest Hemingway's on his shit. People used to have respect for what it meant to be a doctor or a lawyer. Not necessarily the specific professions, but more the work that goes into them, or the idea that there's a lot of value in the knowledge specific to those professions, you know? People used to go, like when vaccines were invented, they were a miracle. And nowadays they're so cheap in people's minds that people will, you know, they won't even get their kids the measles vaccines, you know? It's a widespread anti-intellectualism, a disdain. It's a disdain for intellectual elitism, or sorry, it's a disdain for feelings of mediocrity masquerading as an attack on elitism. People pretend that it's an attack on like pretense or on, you know, feelings of superiority over another. But in reality, I think a lot of people are just offended by the idea that they don't personally know how to do something. Why respect a trade? You can just look up a tutorial on YouTube, you know? I don't know. Oh, I could paint that, you say, as you know, gesture at a painting. Oh, I could write that. Well, nobody says, well, I could write that about a book, because nobody reads books, you know? I feel like this is a bit overly reductionist. Sure, I'm talking about like a very widespread trend. It has to be reductive or I'd be here for like 6 hours talking about it. But yeah, I mean, I think the general trend is defensible. Yeah, or the idea. I think you're underestimating how big a lot of those things were back in the day. Dude, that book passage about everyone waiting with bated breath to hear the announcement of the polio vaccine, where the entire country threw their hats up in the air. Listen, the average person has always been a dullard, okay? But they still revered these, like, pinnacle... No one gives a shit anymore, dude. Only like little policy wonks and tech nerds care about shit. Oh, NVIDIA made a better chip or something. That's all people care about, you know? There's no reverence for any kind of intelligentsia or cultural elitism in any field. Nobody wants to believe that any person or any institution could know more than them. Like on both sides of the aisle. And the problem is the Democrats, like the Republicans, are all about it. Nobody's smart. Everyone's the same. In a way, it's very like, what is it called? Harrison Bergeson, the Republicans. They're like, no. The average guy should be running the government. There's no difference actually between people. There's no such thing as knowing more than you. They want to bring everyone down to the floor. And the Democrats are like, no, trust me, we know what we're doing. And then they don't know what they're doing. That's the problem. On the other side, the Democrats are like, no, we still believe in technocracy. We still believe in like intelligentsia, but they don't. They just believe in like prioritizing their own. They just believe in their gerontocratic circle. They just believe in the tenure for their elected representatives. They don't actually believe in it. They don't value any kind of expertise. So on both sides of the aisle, it's all getting torn apart, you know? We're all just so mediocre. Didn't Bernie Sanders run a 5-minute mile when he was in high school? I wonder how many high schoolers today could run a 5-minute mile.